Jake Morrison walked into the huge white room where the Galactic Council met every week. The room was made of some kind of crystal that sparkled when the light hit it. Jake had been coming to this room for 27 years now. He was getting old and his hair was gray, but his eyes were still sharp. Today he felt tired in a way that had nothing to do with his age. The other beings in the room were already sitting in their special chairs. Each race had chairs made just for their bodies. The Zelthani looked like tall walking crystals, and their chairs were made of metal that hummed with electricity. The Vorthak had 6 arms each and big compound eyes like insects. Their chairs were wide and had armrests for all their arms. The Kreetel looked like giant ants walking on 2 legs, and their chairs were low to the ground. Jake sat in his simple human chair and looked around the room. 12 different alien races sat in a circle. All of them thought they were better than humans. They had been in space for thousands of years before humans even invented the wheel. They never let humans forget this fact. The meeting started the same way it always did. Council Speaker Zeth Moran stood up on his 6 legs. He was a Vorthak and the leader of all the council meetings. His compound eyes looked at Jake like he was looking at a bug. "Today we will discuss the human request again," Zeth Moran said in his buzzing voice. The translator in Jake's ear turned the alien sounds into English words. "The humans want to mine on the planet Kepler 442c. This is the 15th time they have asked for this." Jake felt his hands get tight. 15 times. For 3 years, he had been asking for permission to mine on this empty planet. There were no aliens living there. There were no plants or animals. It was just a big rock floating in space. But this rock had metals that Earth needed badly. The human space fleet was growing, and they needed these metals to build new ships. Every time Jake asked, the council said no. They always had a reason. The planet was too important for the ecosystem. The mining would damage the balance of space. The humans were too young to handle such responsibility. The excuses never ended. "We have studied this request very carefully," Zeth Moran continued. His voice sounded bored, like he was reading from a script. "The council has decided that humans are still not ready for this kind of operation. The planet Kepler 442c is too valuable to risk damage from primitive mining techniques." Jake heard one of the Kreetal make a clicking sound. It was their way of laughing. Several other council members made their own sounds of amusement. They thought human technology was like stone tools compared to their advanced machines. "Furthermore," Zeth Moran said, "the human request shows a lack of understanding about galactic environmental protocols. Perhaps in another 50 years, when human civilization has matured, we can revisit this matter." 50 years. Jake would be dead in 50 years. His children would be old. His grandchildren would be adults. The council was basically saying that humans should wait until everyone alive today was gone. Jake had been a diplomat his whole adult life. He had learned to smile and be polite even when aliens insulted his entire species. He had learned to say thank you when they rejected human requests. He had learned to bow his head and promise to do better next time. But something was different today. Maybe it was because his grandson had sent him a video message yesterday. The boy was only 8 years old, but he was so excited about space, ships. He wanted to be a pilot when he grew up. He wanted to explore the galaxy and meet aliens and see new worlds. Jake thought about all the young humans who wanted to reach for the stars. He thought about all the human colonies that needed resources to grow. He thought about Earth itself, crowded with 10 billion people who were looking up at the sky with hope. Then he thought about sitting in this room for 27 years. 27 years of being treated like a child. 27 years of being told that humans were not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough. The other council members were talking now. They were discussing human psychology like Jake was not even in the room. The Zelthani representative was saying that humans were naturally violent and could not be trusted with mining equipment. The Kreetal was clicking about how human brains were too simple to understand complex orbital mechanics. Jake felt something break inside his chest. It was not his heart. It was something deeper than that. It was his patience, his hope, his belief that this system could ever work for humanity. He stood up slowly. The sound of his chair scraping against the crystal floor was very loud in the quiet room. All the alien eyes turned to look at him. This never happened. Humans never interrupted council meetings. It was against protocol. "We're done here," Jake said. His voice was not loud, but it carried across the room like thunder. The room went completely silent. Even the humming from the Zelthani chairs stopped. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. "Excuse me?" Zethmaran said. His compound eyes were all focused on Jake now. "What did you say?" Jake looked around the room at all the alien faces. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. All of them looked surprised. "I said we're done here," Jake repeated. "Humanity is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. We quit. We're not going to sit here anymore and beg for permission to live our lives." The silence got even deeper, if that was possible. In the 3,000-year history of the Galactic Council, no species had ever voluntarily left. The idea was so crazy that no one had ever even thought about it. "You cannot simply leave," Zethmaran said. His 6 arms were waving around in what Jake knew was a sign of distress. "There are procedures. There are protocols. There are treaties." Jake picked up his briefcase and started walking toward the door. "Keep your procedures," he said without looking back. "Keep your protocols. Humans will make their own way from now on." "This is madness," one of the other aliens called out. "You cannot survive without the Council. No species can survive alone in the galaxy." Jake stopped at the door and turned around one last time. He looked at each of the 12 alien faces. For 27 years he had tried to make them respect humanity. For 27 years he had failed. "Maybe you're right," Jake said. "Maybe we can't survive alone, but we'd rather die trying than live on our knees." He walked out of the crystal room and never looked back. Behind him, the council erupted into chaos as 12 different species all tried to talk at once in their different languages. Their translator. Systems could not handle all the noise at the same time. Jake Morrison walked down the long hallway toward his ship. His footsteps echoed off the walls. For the first time in 27 years, he felt truly free. Captain Lisa Hayes was eating breakfast in her ship when the message came through. She was sitting in the small dining room of the UES Independence, looking out at the stars through the big window. Her ship was patrolling the edge of human space, making sure no pirates or raiders were bothering the trade ships. The communication officer knocked on her door and handed her a sealed message tube. Lisa had never seen a message tube like this before. It was black instead of the usual blue, and it had red stripes around it. The red stripes meant this message came from the highest levels of Earth government. Lisa opened the tube and read the message inside. Her coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth as she read the words. She read them again to make sure she understood correctly. Then she read them a third time, because she could not believe what they said. All human diplomats were being recalled from alien space immediately. All trade agreements with Council species were suspended. All joint military operations were canceled. Every human who worked with aliens in any official way had 48 hours to pack their things and come home. The message was signed by the President of Earth and the Secretary of Space Affairs. It was real. Lisa put down her coffee cup and called for her senior officers to meet her in the conference room. When they were all sitting around the table, she read them the message out loud. The room was quiet for a long time after she finished reading. "Does this mean we're at war?" asked Lieutenant Commander Ryan Murphy, her chief engineer. "No," Lisa said. "This means we're done asking for permission." Across the galaxy, the same scene was happening on every human ship and every human station. Diplomats packed their bags in alien embassies. Trade representatives closed their offices on alien worlds. Military officers said goodbye to their alien counterparts and headed home. The aliens did not understand what was happening at first. When Ambassador Jake Morrison had walked out of the council meeting, they thought he was just angry and would come back after he cooled down. When all the other human diplomats started leaving too, they realized this was something much bigger. Ambassador Sarah Collins had been working on the Vorthak homeworld for 10 years. She spoke their language fluently and had many alien friends. When she told them she was leaving forever, they could not believe it. "But we need you here," said her Vorthak assistant, a young alien named Kethvar. "You help us understand human culture. You help us trade with human merchants." "I'm sorry," Sarah said as she packed her books into boxes. "These orders come from Earth. All humans are coming home." "But why?" Kethvar asked. "What did we do wrong, Sarah?" Looked at her alien friend and felt sad. Kethvar was not like the arrogant council members. He was kind and curious and treated humans with respect, but he was just one alien among billions. "It's not what you did wrong," Sarah said. "It's what your leaders have been doing wrong for 27 years. The news spread through alien space. Faster than light-speed communication, every alien government heard the same reports. The humans were leaving, all of them, everywhere. On the planet Xerion Prime, Human Trade Representative David Foster was closing down the largest human trade office outside of Earth space. Alien merchants were lining up outside his office, trying to understand what was happening to their business deals. "You cannot leave now," said Merchant Guild leader Vextai. "We have contracts. We have agreements. We have shipments arriving next week." David looked at the alien through the office window. Vextai was a Zelthani, one of the crystal people. His body was glowing red with stress, which meant he was very upset. "All contracts are void," David said. "All agreements are canceled. Any human ships coming to Xerion space will turn around and go home." "But this is madness," Vextai said. "Our economies are connected. Our trade routes depend on each other. You cannot simply cut all ties." David sealed the last box of human records and picked it up. "Watch us," he said. Back on Earth, President Helen Martinez was meeting with her cabinet in the White House Situation Room. The big wall screen showed a map of human space with red dots marking every human ship and station. Green lines showed all the diplomatic and trade connections to alien worlds. As they watched, the green lines started disappearing one by one. "Are we sure this is the right move?" asked Secretary of State Robert Kim. "We're burning a lot of bridges here." "Those bridges only went one way," the president said. "We spent decades building relationships with aliens who never respected us. Maybe it's time to show them what they're losing." Defense Secretary Patricia Wells was watching reports from human military units across the galaxy. "All our people are responding well," she said. "No panic, no resistance to orders. They seem almost relieved to be coming home." The president nodded. She had expected this reaction. Every human who worked in alien space had stories about being treated badly, about being ignored in meetings, about having their ideas dismissed, about being looked down on for being part of such a young species. "How long before all our people are back in human space?" the president asked. 46 hours, Wells answered. "Maybe less. Everyone wants to come home." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was meeting in emergency session for the second time in 1 week. The crystal chamber was full of angry alien voices as 12 species all tried to talk at once. Council Speaker Zeth Moran was standing in the center of the room, his 6 arms waving frantically as he tried to restore order. "Silence," he buzzed, loudly. "We must approach this crisis with calm reasoning." "Calm reasoning?" clicked Counselor Clicktar of the Kretal. "The humans have destroyed 3,000 years of galactic order in 2 days. There is nothing calm about this situation." "Counselor." Vex Hari of the Zelthani was glowing bright orange, which meant he was furious. "My traders are losing millions of credits every hour. Human merchants were our biggest customers. Now they are simply gone." "The humans cannot survive without us," said Counselor Morthdan of the Quellian Empire. "They are too young, too primitive, too dependent on our technology and resources. They will come crawling back within a month." Zeth Morin was not so sure. He had seen the look in Jake Morrison's eyes when the human ambassador walked out of the meeting. It was not the look of someone who was bluffing or throwing a temper tantrum. It was the look of someone who had made a decision and would never change his mind. "Perhaps we should consider why the humans left," Zeth Moran said carefully. "Perhaps we should examine our own actions." The other council members made sounds of disbelief. The idea that they might have done something wrong was impossible for them to accept. By the end of the 48-hour deadline, every human diplomat, trader, and military officer had left alien space. The vast network of relationships that had taken decades to build was gone completely. Human space became quiet and isolated, like a house with all the doors and windows closed. But inside human space, something new was beginning. President Martinez issued a statement that was broadcast to every human world and station. "We are no longer going to beg for our place in the galaxy," she said. "We are going to earn it. We are going to build it ourselves. And we are going to show everyone what humans can do when we stop asking for permission." The withdrawal was complete. Now the real work would begin. 6 months after leaving the Galactic Council, humanity was doing things that made the aliens very nervous. Engineer Ryan Murphy stood on the observation deck of the biggest construction project humans had ever attempted. Through the thick glass, he could see hundreds of human ships working together to build something amazing. The project was called Titan Station, and it was going to be a city in space. Not just a small research station or military outpost, but a real city where millions of humans could live and work. The station was being built in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, using materials from the asteroids themselves. Ryan had been working on this project for 4 months now. Before humanity left the Council, a project like this would have taken years of paperwork and permissions from alien bureaucrats. The aliens would have demanded environmental impact studies and cultural sensitivity reports and dozens of other documents that took forever to prepare. Now the humans were just building it. They had the knowledge, they had the materials, and they had the will to do it. Nothing was stopping them except the laws of physics. "How much longer until the residential section is complete?" asked Dr. Amy Foster as she joined Ryan at the window. Amy was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life forms. She was going to run the research labs on Titan Station. 3 more weeks, Ryan said. "The artificial gravity generators are already working. We tested them yesterday with a full simulation." Amy smiled as she watched the construction ships moving, like a swarm of metal bees. "The Council species said we could never build something like this without their help." "The Council species said a lot of things," Ryan replied. "Most of them were wrong. While Titan Station was being built, other human projects were happening all across the galaxy. The mining operation on Kepler 442c had started just 2 weeks after the withdrawal from the Council. The planet that the aliens said was too important to mine was now producing tons of rare metals every day. Captain Lisa Hayes had been promoted to Commodore and was now in charge of human exploration missions. Her job was to find new worlds and new resources that humans could use. She was also making contact with alien species that were not part of the Council. Lisa's ship, the UES Independence, was currently orbiting a planet in the Tau Ceti system. The planet had signs of intelligent life, but these aliens had never been contacted by the Council. They were what humans called independents, species that chose to stay out of galactic politics. "Commodore," said her communications officer, Lieutenant Janet Collins. "We're receiving a response from the planet's surface. They're willing to meet with us." Lisa nodded. "Tell them we'll send a shuttle down with a small diplomatic team. Make it clear that we come in peace and we want to trade, not conquer." This was the new human way of doing things. Instead of asking the Council for permission to meet new species, humans just went out and met them directly. Instead of following council rules about first contact, humans made their own rules based on respect and mutual benefit. The aliens on Tau Cetia 4 were called the Epsilon High. They looked like large otters that walked on their hind legs and had 4 arms instead of 2. They were peaceful traders who had been ignored by the council for centuries because they did not have advanced military technology. When the human diplomatic team met with the Epsilon High leaders, both sides were pleasantly surprised. The Epsilon High had valuable rare earth elements that humans needed. The humans had advanced medical technology that could help the Epsilon High fight a disease that was affecting their children. "This is most unusual," said Epsilon High trade leader. "Soft-tail swimming. Most young species come to us with demands and threats. You come with offers and gifts." Ambassador Sarah Collins, who had been reassigned from the Vorthak homeworld to lead first contact missions, smiled at the otter-like alien. "Humans believe that trade should benefit everyone involved. We want partners, not subjects." Within a week, humans and Epsilon High had signed a trade agreement that gave both species what they needed. No council oversight was required. No bureaucratic delays slowed down the process. 2 species met, talked, and made a deal that helped them both. News of the human Epsilon High alliance spread quickly through the galaxy. Other independent species started sending messages to human space, asking if they could trade too. The Kethalar, a mysterious species that had been hiding from the Council for thousands of years, sent a diplomatic probe to make contact with humans. The Wanderer Coalition, a group of nomadic aliens who traveled between stars in giant ships, offered to share star charts with human explorers in exchange for human food preservation technology. Even some council member species were starting to reach out to humans privately. Minor officials and individual citizens were sending secret messages, asking if humans would be willing to trade with them directly instead of going through official council channels. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, panic was setting in. Council Speaker Zeth Moran was reading reports that made his compound eyes twitch with stress. "The humans have established 17 new trade relationships in the past month," he announced to the council. "Species that we have never heard of are coming out of hiding to make deals with them." Councillor Vexhari was glowing bright red with anger. "This is unacceptable. The humans are disrupting the natural order of things. They are making contact with species without proper supervision." "Natural order?" clicked Councillor Clicktar sarcastically. "The humans are simply doing what we should have been doing all along. They are treating other species as equals instead of inferiors." This statement caused an uproar in the council chamber. The idea that the council had been treating other species badly was something most members could not accept. Zeth Moran restored order by banging his ceremonial staff on the floor. "The fact remains that human actions are destabilizing our entire system of government. Trade revenues are down 30%. Several minor species have canceled their council membership applications." What the council did not understand was that their system had never been stable for anyone except themselves. The 12 major species had controlled galactic trade and politics for thousands of years, keeping smaller species dependent and powerless. Humans offered something different. They offered respect, fair deals, and the chance for smaller species to grow and prosper. It was an offer that many aliens found impossible to refuse. Dr. Amy Foster was conducting the first joint research project between humans and Epsilon High scientists. They were studying a form of space-adapted plant life that could produce oxygen in zero gravity. The discovery could revolutionize space travel for both species. "Your council would have classified this research for decades," Soft-Tail Swimming told Amy. "They would have studied it in secret and used it to control other species." Amy looked up from her microscope. "That's not how science should work. Knowledge should be shared freely so everyone can benefit from it." The Epsilon High scientist made a sound that Amy had learned was their equivalent of laughter. This is why so many species are choosing to work with humans instead of the council. You share your gifts instead of hoarding them. Meanwhile, human industrial capacity was growing at a rate that shocked even human leaders. Without council regulations limiting their expansion, human shipyards were producing new vessels faster than ever before. Human colonies were being established on worlds that had been off-limits under council law. The mining operation on Kepler 442c had expanded to include a full industrial complex. Human engineers had discovered that the planet contained not just rare metals, but also deposits of a crystalline material that could store huge amounts of energy. Within 6 months, humanity had gone from being a minor species begging for scraps to being a major power that other species wanted to ally with. The transformation was so dramatic that even humans were surprised by it. President Helen Martinez stood in the Oval Office looking at reports from across human space. Every report told the same story: growth, expansion, success, and most importantly, respect from other species. "Madam President," said her chief of staff, "we've received a formal request from the Xerion hegemony. They want to establish direct trade relations with us." The president raised her eyebrows. The Xerion hegemony was one of the founding members of the Galactic Council. If they were reaching out to humans directly, it meant the Council's authority was crumbling faster than anyone had expected. "Set up the meeting," the president said. "It looks like the galaxy is finally ready to listen to what humans have been saying all along." 1 year after humanity left the Galactic Council, the galaxy looked completely different. Commander Steve Bradley flew his scout ship through the Centauri cluster, documenting all the changes that had happened in just 12 months. What he saw amazed him. Human settlements were working side by side with alien communities on dozens of worlds. On the planet New Haven, human farmers were teaching epsilon-high agricultural techniques, while the otter-like aliens shared their advanced water purification technology. Both species were thriving together in ways that would have been impossible under council regulations. Steve recorded his observations on a datapad as he flew over the settlements. "Day 365 of the withdrawal," he spoke into his recorder. "Human-alien cooperation continues to exceed all expectations. No conflicts reported. Trade volume up 800% from pre-withdrawal levels." The changes were not just economic, they were cultural and social too. Human children were learning epsilon-high swimming techniques in specially built pools. Epsilon-high youngsters were attending human schools to learn advanced mathematics and engineering. The mixing of cultures was creating new ideas and innovations that neither species could have developed alone. On the planet Kepler 442c, the mining operation had grown into a full industrial city. What made it special was that it was not just humans working there anymore. The Wanderer Coalition had sent some of their people to help with the mining in exchange for human medical supplies for their ships. The Kethler, the mysterious species that had avoided the Council for thousands of years, had established a permanent embassy in the human city on Kepler 442c. They were tall, thin beings with silver skin and large black eyes. For centuries, they had hidden from other species because they were afraid of being conquered or enslaved. "The humans are different," Kethlar Ambassador Silver Song in Darkness told the human colony administrator Janet Murphy. "They do not seek to dominate us. They seek to understand us." Janet smiled at the alien diplomat. "Understanding is the first step toward friendship, and friends help each other succeed." This philosophy was spreading throughout the galaxy faster than the Council could stop it. Species that had been enemies for centuries were making peace because humans showed them how cooperation was better than conflict. The breaking point came when something unthinkable happened. The Xerion hegemony, one of the most powerful founding members of the Galactic Council, formally announced they were leaving the Council to join what everyone was calling the Human Alliance. The news hit the council chambers like a bomb. Council Speaker Zeth Moran received the message while he was meeting with the other 11 remaining council members. His 6 arms shook as he read the formal withdrawal notice aloud. The Xerion hegemony hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately, he read in a voice that trembled with shock. We will be joining the cooperative framework established by humanity and their allies. The silence in the chamber was deafening. In 3,000 years of Council history, no founding member had ever left voluntarily. The Xerion hegemony was not just any member either. They controlled some of the most important trade routes in the galaxy. Councillor Vexhari's crystalline body was flashing between red and orange, showing his extreme agitation. This is impossible. The Xerion hegemony helped create the Council. They cannot simply abandon everything we have built together. They just did, Zeth Moran replied grimly. And according to intelligence reports, 3 more Council species are considering similar action. The intelligence reports were correct. The Altarian Republic was secretly negotiating with human representatives. The Rigel Confederacy had sent unofficial diplomatic feelers to human space. Even some minor Council species were questioning whether they should stay in an organization that was clearly losing power and influence. Former Ambassador Jake Morrison, who now held the title of Earth's Minister of Interspecies Relations, was busier than he had ever been in his life. His office on Titan Station received dozens of requests for meetings every day. Species that had never heard of humans a year ago were now eager to establish diplomatic relations. The irony was not lost on Jake. For 27 years, he had begged the Council to treat humanity with respect. Now, alien species were begging humanity for meetings. Jake's assistant, a young woman named Carol Peters, who had a doctorate in xenopsychology, brought him the latest batch of diplomatic requests. We have formal meeting requests from the Centauri Alliance, the Beta Orionis Trade Guild, and the Free Worlds of Vega, she said. Also, we received an urgent message from Council Speaker Zeth Moran. Jake looked up from his desk with interest. What does the Council Speaker want? Carol handed him a sealed message crystal. He wants to discuss terms for humanity's return to the Council. Jake almost laughed out loud. The Council wanted humanity to come back. After 27 years of treating humans like children, they wanted to negotiate humanity's return. Jake activated the message crystal and listened to Zeth Moran's words. The Vorthak's tone was very different from the arrogant buzzing Jake remembered from Council meetings. Now the alien leader sounded worried and almost desperate. Ambassador Morrison, the message began, the Galactic Council recognizes that perhaps we have not fully appreciated humanity's contributions to galactic civilization. We would like to discuss terms for humanity's return to proper galactic governance. Jake saved the message and thought about his response for several hours. When he finally recorded his reply, his words were polite but firm. Council Speaker Zeth Moran, Jake said to the recording crystal, humanity appreciates your message. However, we are no longer interested in being governed by the Council. We are interested in being partners with the Council. If the Galactic Council wishes to join our cooperative framework as equal members, you are welcome to submit an application. The audacity of Jake's response sent shockwaves through what remained of the Council. The species they had dismissed as primitive newcomers was now offering the Council membership in humanity's alliance as junior partners. Dr. Carol Peters had been analyzing the social and economic changes happening across the galaxy. Her research showed that the old Council system had been holding back galactic progress for centuries. The rigid hierarchy and bureaucratic delays had prevented innovation and kept smaller species from developing their full potential. The Council model was designed to maintain the power of the strongest species, Carol wrote in her report. It created artificial scarcity and competition that benefited only the major powers. The human cooperative model creates abundance and collaboration that benefits everyone. Carol's report became required reading for diplomats and economists throughout the galaxy. It showed in simple terms why the human approach was working so much better than the Council approach. The human cooperative framework was not really a government at all. It was more like a mutual aid society where species helped each other because helping others helped themselves. There were no rulers, no hierarchy, and no species that was considered more important than others. This idea was revolutionary to aliens, who had lived under the council system for thousands of years. Many of them had never imagined that galactic civilization could work any other way. Captain Lisa Hayes, now promoted to Admiral of the Cooperative Defense Fleet, was overseeing joint military exercises between human, Epsilon High, and Xerion forces. The three species had very different military traditions, but they were learning to work together effectively. "The key is communication," Lisa told her mixed crew during a briefing. "We don't all have to do things the same way. We just have to understand what each other is doing and why." The joint fleet was not preparing for war. It was preparing to explore the unknown regions of the galaxy where no species had ever traveled before. The cooperative approach had freed up so much time and resources that major exploration missions were now possible. Meanwhile, the old Galactic Council was struggling to maintain control over its remaining territory. 4 of the original 12 founding species had left to join the human cooperative. 3 more were seriously considering leaving. Only 5 species remained fully committed to the council system. Trade revenues in council space had dropped by 70% as more and more merchants chose to do business with the cooperative instead. The cooperative offered better deals, faster processing, and most importantly, they treated all traders with respect regardless of what species they belonged to. Zeth Moran sat alone in his private chambers, looking out at the stars and wondering how everything had changed so quickly. Just 2 years ago, the Council had been the undisputed power in the galaxy. Now they were becoming irrelevant. His communication system chimed with an incoming message. It was from a junior member of his own species, a young Vorthak who worked as a trader in human space. "Honored speaker," the message said, "I have been working with humans for 6 months now. They treat me better than our own council ever did. They listen to my ideas and value my contributions. Perhaps it is time for our people to consider joining the cooperative." Zeth Moran turned off the message without responding. But he could not stop thinking about the young Vorthak's words. Maybe it was time to consider that the humans had been right all along. 2 years after humanity walked away from the Galactic Council, Jake Morrison found himself in a meeting room he never could have imagined. The conference hall on Haven Station was filled with representatives from 43 different species, including several who had once looked down on humanity as primitive children. Haven Station was humanity's greatest engineering achievement, a massive space city that served as the center of the new galactic order. The station was built using technology and materials contributed by dozens of species working together. Human engineering combined with Epsilon High water recycling systems, Kethlar energy storage crystals, and Xerion gravity generators to create something none of them could have built alone. Jake sat at the head of a circular table, but he was not there as a leader. In the cooperative, there were no permanent leaders. The position of meeting coordinator rotated between species every month. This month, it was humanity's turn, so Jake got to run the meetings. Council Speaker Zeth Moran approached Jake's table slowly. The proud Vorthak's 6 arms were folded in a gesture that Jake had learned meant humility. 2 years ago, Zeth Moran had barely acknowledged Jake's existence. Now, the alien leader was here to beg for membership in the organization that humans had created. "Minister Morrison," Zeth Moran said in his buzzing voice, "the Vorthak Collective formally requests membership in the cooperative." Jake looked up at the alien who had dismissed humanity for so many years. He felt a moment of satisfaction, but he pushed it aside. The cooperative was not about revenge. It was about building something better. "Speaker Zeth Moran," Jake replied, "there is no such thing as the human cooperative. It is simply called the cooperative because it belongs to all of us equally. Your application will be reviewed by all current member species, including those you once considered too unimportant for council membership." Zeth Moran's compound eyes twitched at this reminder of past arrogance. many of the species now sitting in this room had been ignored or dismissed by the old council. Now they would have a voice in deciding whether the Vorthak could join their organization. Admiral Lisa Hayes watched the proceedings from the observation deck above the conference hall. Through the huge windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species working together in the space around Haven Station. Human vessels worked alongside Epsilon-high water transports, Xerion battle cruisers, and sleek Kethlar exploration ships. The sight still amazed her. 2 years ago, most of these species had never worked together. Some had been enemies for centuries. Now they were building a joint deep space exploration fleet that would venture into the unknown regions beyond the galactic rim. The exploration fleet was just one of many cooperative projects. There were joint research stations studying everything from alien biology to new forms of faster-than-light travel. There were mixed colonies where multiple species lived and worked together. There were cultural exchange programs that let young beings from different worlds learn about each other. Most importantly, there were no wars between cooperative member species. Conflicts were resolved through negotiation and compromise rather than violence. When disputes arose, they were handled by joint committees that included representatives from all affected species. Engineer Ryan Murphy was putting the finishing touches on the cooperative's latest achievement in the station's industrial section. The terraforming platform was a massive machine that could transform dead worlds into living planets suitable for colonization. The technology combined human atmospheric processors with Xerion soil treatment systems and Epsilon-high ecosystem management techniques. "How many worlds can this thing handle at once?" asked his assistant, a young Kethlar named Bright Stars Dancing. "According to the simulations, we can terraform up to 5 worlds simultaneously," Ryan answered. "And the best part is that we're sharing the technology with all cooperative members. No one has to pay licensing fees or beg for permission to use it." This was the fundamental difference between the cooperative and the old council. The council had hoarded technology and used it to maintain power over other species. The cooperative shared everything freely because they understood that making everyone stronger made the whole organization stronger. The old Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Only 3 of the original 12 founding species remained as members. The Council controlled less than 15% of inhabited galactic space, and their influence was shrinking every month. More importantly, the species that stayed with the Council were struggling economically and technologically. Without access to cooperative trade networks and shared research, they were falling behind the rest of the galaxy. Dr. Amy Foster had just published her latest research paper, a comprehensive study of how cooperation between species had accelerated scientific progress throughout the galaxy. Her research teams included scientists from 8 different species, and their discoveries were shared freely with anyone who wanted to use them. In just 2 years, Amy wrote in her conclusion, cooperative research has produced more scientific breakthroughs than the previous 50 years of council-controlled research. When knowledge is shared freely instead of hoarded jealously, everyone benefits. Amy's research station in orbit around Kepler 4422c had become a model for scientific cooperation. Human researchers worked alongside alien scientists as equals, sharing ideas and building on each other's discoveries. The artificial barriers that had once separated species were disappearing. President Helen Martinez stood in the Oval Office, reading the latest reports from across human space. Every report told the same story: growth, prosperity, and most importantly, respect. Humanity had earned its place in the galaxy not by conquering other species, but by treating them as partners. "Madam President," said her chief of staff, "we've received another application for cooperative membership. This one is from the Andromedan Contact Group." The president raised her eyebrows. The Andromedan Contact Group represented species from the Andromeda Galaxy who had recently made first contact with the Milky Way. If they were applying for cooperative membership, It meant humanity's reputation for fairness and cooperation had spread beyond their own galaxy. "Schedule a meeting," the president said. "It looks like the cooperative is going to need a bigger conference table." The success of the cooperative had not gone unnoticed by the remaining council species. Even among the 3 founding members who had stayed loyal to the council, there were growing voices calling for change. On the Zelthani homeworld, Crystal citizens were demonstrating in the streets, demanding that their government join the cooperative. On Creedle Prime, worker clans were going on strike, refusing to work for a government that kept them isolated from the galactic community. Even among the Quellians, the most traditional and conservative council species, young citizens were questioning whether the old ways were worth maintaining. Zeth Morin returned to his homeworld after submitting the Vorthak application for cooperative membership. He was met by crowds of his own people who cheered his decision. Many Vorthak had been secretly trading with cooperative species for months, and they were eager to make those relationships official. "Why did it take so long?" asked one young Vorthak, citizen at a public meeting. "Everyone knows the cooperative treats its members better than the council ever did." Zeth Moran looked out at the crowd of his people. For the first time in decades, he saw hope in their faces, instead of resignation. "Pride," he answered honestly. "It took time for us to admit that the humans were right and we were wrong." 5 years after Jake Morrison walked out of that council meeting, he sat in his garden on Earth, watching his grandchildren play under a sky that showed the aurora effects gifted by the Epsilon High. The colorful lights dancing across the heavens were a symbol of the friendship between species that had once seemed impossible. His old communication device chimed with a message from Haven Station. Another species wanted to join the cooperative. The Rigelian Trade Federation had finally decided to abandon the council and apply for membership in the organization that treated everyone as equals. Jake smiled and picked up his communicator. 5 years ago, humanity had abandoned the old diplomacy of begging and pleading for respect. They had replaced it with a new diplomacy based on mutual benefit and genuine partnership. The galaxy was a bigger, brighter place now. There was room for everyone to thrive, and no one had to ask permission to reach for the stars. Humanity had not just found its place in the galaxy. They had helped create a galaxy where every species could find their place too. The message indicator chimed again. Another application for membership. Another species that had heard there was a place in the universe where you did not have to bow to anyone to be treated with dignity. Jake reached for his communicator with a smile. Humanity might have abandoned the old diplomacy, but they had never been busier building bridges. The difference was that now they were building them as equals, and the bridges went both ways.